So welcome back to the Marvin Chronicles. Today I'll be discussing why I decided to stay in Da Nang, Vietnam while there's a worldwide pandemic. So stay tuned. I want to start with talking about the situation in Vietnam. So the pandemic here, I would say, is milder compared to what's going on in the rest of the world. In comparison, the US at this point has, I think, over 200,000 cases. And here in Vietnam, there's roughly about 200 cases. They did start shutting borders down quite early. Right now, no foreigners are allowed to come into Vietnam, and many countries as well, like Singapore and Malaysia and I believe Thailand and Cambodia. I decided in March that I was going to stay in Vietnam throughout this pandemic. I had the opportunity to go back home through my travel insurance company, and that ended on March 21st. Now, for me, home would be going back to the United States. So let's talk about the reasons why I stayed. I came to Da Nang from Bali. I'd been spending a lot of time in Bali. I came to Da Nang to kind of take a break. I was already planning to stay here for 3 months, and for the reason to focus on building a freelance career, making videos like these, and just focusing on some skills. So that goal hasn't really changed, and this pandemic really hasn't done a lot to affect that specific goal. In terms of Da Nang, if you've never heard of it, it's actually on the coast in Vietnam. So we have a nice beach out here, and the weather's pretty temperate. Right now it's actually pretty warm, but that really helped the decision in terms of where do I want to stay during this pandemic. Since Vietnam stopped letting foreigners in, they did allow foreigners that are still in Vietnam to extend for about 3 months. And so I thought that would be a great opportunity. Typically when you're doing an extension for your visa, especially for Vietnam and several other Asian countries, you have to physically leave the country. The cost of that extension is actually quite expensive. To my understanding, a 3-month visa extension will cost in the neighborhood of $340, I believe. I took into account the cost of living in my decision. Here in Vietnam, the cost of living is relatively low. This apartment I'm standing in right now, or sitting in right now, is $350 a month. If I were to fly back to the US, even though I could have gotten a free flight, I would have to pay for a hotel for 2 weeks to kind of self-quarantine so I wouldn't catch anything on the way there and spread it to anyone else. And then I'd be really limited. I don't have a car there, and I don't have my own apartment. Here I can continue doing the work I do online, and it covers the majority, if not all, my living costs here in Vietnam. And I've been fortunate enough here to have met some great people from all over the world. I do have friends from America, but I have neighbors here from other parts of the world. All of us have goals that we're striving to. One's a life coach, another one's trying to do some freelance work. The places I've loved the most, such as Bali and South Korea, are places that I had a strong bond with the people I'd met there. Final thoughts. So when I made the decision to stay in March, cafes and restaurants and food delivery was still open and still option. Even the beach was still open. Now, during this government shutdown, none of those are options. There's no delivery. You really can't go on the beach. I do look at flights occasionally. I just want to make sure, A, there's flights that actually go to America, and there are always a couple of flights going back to America. I signed up for the State Department, so I have an email basically every day telling me what's going on. Right now, flights one way to the US, and I'm looking specifically to like Los Angeles, would be roughly around $700. However, there's definitely a group of people from other countries here that have shut their borders completely, like Russia and Colombia, and even their citizens can't return just yet. I do speak to my parents on a regular basis, and they seem to be doing fine. My dad's actually even retiring this month. I'm grateful for FaceTime and being able to speak to them. The time difference makes it a little bit tricky. They have asked me to come back a few times, but they do understand my reasons. I am very grateful for this opportunity to have traveled for 2 years. So my 2-year anniversary will be around April 15th, I can walk away with the memories I have. I have a ton of footage from all these travels that I could spend the next year or two editing. I hope you enjoyed this video and understanding why I decided to stay in Da Nang. Again, things can always change. My next video could be me going back home. There's things we have to always worry about, like will they ask foreigners to leave? Could crime increase because of what's going on? Locals in different parts of the world do blame foreigners for what's going on. I'm just trying to lay low and enjoy the time I have here, and we'll see what the future brings. So again, if you like this, please consider subscribing, and I will see you next time. Take care.